Coming into the 2024 season, pretty much every local and national pundit said if there's going to be a unit on this Ohio State team that holds them back from winning a national championship, it's going to be the offensive line. Now, I got to be careful here because I can't say anything about the 2024 Ohio State Buckeyes without 14 people telling me that they haven't played anybody yet, as if I'm unaware that the competition has not been quite to the level of Ohio State. So I'm going to pretend for a minute that these same people don't say that about, I don't know, 85% of the Big Ten teams Ohio State plays, uh, and just indulge them for a second here. I'm not judging Ohio State versus the competition they're playing. I'm judging the 2024 Ohio State Buckeyes versus the 2023 Ohio State Buckeyes, who also played a couple of cream puffs to start the season. Everybody does. This team plays 3 because Washington backed out on them. Well, they both kind of mutually backed out. Washington joined the Big Ten. Interestingly enough, Paul Feinbaum called out the Buckeyes for their schedule and said last year Georgia played a weak schedule, but that's because they had Oklahoma scheduled and Oklahoma joined the SEC, which is the literally exact same scenario that Ohio State and Washington went through now. But anyway, that'll be in my idiots in the media segment later on today. So I'm judging the 2024 Buckeyes versus the 2023 Buckeyes, and the 2023 Buckeyes had a center who was the worst performing offensive lineman on the team. The center was forced into duty when Luke Whippler decided he was going to the NFL, surprisingly. And what did you do? You swapped out that second-year center for Seth McLaughlin. Seth McLaughlin, a 2-year starter at Alabama, who coming in here, I'll be honest, I had no idea what we were getting. We had heard about the snapping issues, and it wasn't just the game that we saw in the playoffs. It was, according to the Alabama folks, an all-year thing. Go figure, they're still having snapping issues with Jaden Milroe. We're having none at Ohio State through 3 games. But I thought if he couldn't snap, whatever, you put him at guard. Obviously, he's a decent player. He was an all-SEC player 2 years ago. This guy has been tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. So you went from a very green center to the guy that came in, and in spring, we had the other linemen saying in press conferences that he's teaching them things. Like they're learning together new schemes, and he's like teaching them all. So the guy is immediately the leader of the group, and we see him play, and he's excellent. Absolutely excellent. That alone, just upgrading that center position, the leader of the offensive line, the guy making the calls, the guy helping, by the way, a brand new right guard, tremendous. And what do? You stick him next to Donovan Jackson and Josh Simmons, and now you've got I think Seth McLaughlin's going to be a finalist for the Remington Award. Josh Simmons might be a first rounder. Donovan Jackson looks like he's going to be an 8-year NFL starter. That left side of the line from center, left guard, left tackle, honestly, top 3 in the country, might be the best one side of a line. Like, it's tremendous. It's absolutely tremendous. You go to the right side, and you've got Tegra, Shabala, and Austin Ceraveld splitting snaps now. And this is not something we expected. We came into preseason camp. Luke Montgomery was, in spring, the guy who was running with the ones in 10 out of the 12 practices. Practice number 11, right before the spring game, you had Tegra and Carson Hinsman, last year's center, taking that spot from him, and they were basically fighting for it all of a sudden, out of the blue. And then they go into the spring game, and it's those two playing ahead of Luke Montgomery. So you come into fall, and it's Tegra and Carson fighting for that right guard spot. Luke Montgomery not even in the picture. So Tegra wins the job. Obviously, they had the big virus run through. Tegra wins the job. Austin Ceraveld was playing a ton from that big virus, and he played so good that in Donovan Jackson's absence in the first 2 games at left guard, Austin Ceraveld gets his first couple of starts. Didn't play perfect, played like a guy making his first couple of starts, but good enough that in the press conference last week, Ryan Day said that he believes he has earned reps. He wants to keep him playing. So we go into the Marshall game, and I talked to Dylan about this before the game, Dylan Davis of the Delaware Gazette. His thought, listening to Ryan Day was, listening to him for 5 years, Dylan's been on the beat, was what Ryan Day said, the way he worded it with Austin Cerebral did not mean that he was going to be rotating him in with Tegra. It meant he thinks he's earned play, basically giving him a pat on the back. He thinks he's earned playing time and he would like to find a way to play him, but definitely not going to rotate him in. They damn near split snaps. We're talking like 32 for Tegra to 29 for Austin Cerebral. So you've got these two. Ryan Day was asked after the game, is he trying to solidify one of them? And he says, no, he likes it how it is. Unless he sees that there's a problem, one of them can't get in a rhythm, then maybe he'll decide what he's going to do at that point. But for the time being, he likes what's going on. Again, Seth McLaughlin right next to the two of those guys who are, between the two of them, you've got 5 collective starts. That's tremendous. Right tackle Josh Fryer, who was another guy after Carson Hinsman last year, was a bit of a weak link on the offensive line. I've talked about it a lot, but this is a guy who in the offseason, in spring, won the Iron Buckeye, one of just 3 guys. Wins it again in fall, the only guy to do it twice. We hear about a tremendous amount of improvement. Coming to the season against Akron, he played against the best player on their defense. Against Marshall, again, the best player on that defense. Got beat a couple of times here or there. A couple of missed assignments. But I will say, I just watched the All-22 breakdown, the coach's film room against Marshall. There were only 3 missed assignments from the entire offensive line for the game. And just 3 missed assignments, game number 3, that's tremendous. So they're clearly being coached well. They clearly understand the scheme. I think that Josh Fryer out in space has looked tremendous. He's done a pretty damn good job pass blocking, better than last year so far. And I mean, even in the first couple of games, he's a year older. He's a year stronger. He's been in the scheme a year longer. The right side, not near as good as the left side. But when you add all these guys up, they have played as good as we could have hoped. Like, think about this offensive line and say, through these first 3 games against the Cream Puffs, how good could we expect? Put the perfect vision in your mind. They have done that. And we've watched so many teams in the past in the offensive line to start the year playing at Youngstown State or something. We're like, why aren't they getting a push? Man for man, these linemen should each be absolutely breaking down the guy across from them, and we don't see it. We've seen it with these guys this year in all 3 games. They've absolutely whooped the guys across from them. They've gotten a push when they needed to push. They have done their job out in space, which is something that we've not seen much of. And I think that we can absolutely say, without a doubt, this is a tremendously improved offensive line from last year. So if this was the biggest bugaboo, if this was the unit that was potentially going to hold Ohio State back this year, obviously, no, we haven't played anyone yet, but I think that we can kind of project forward and say, we are going to see a tremendously improved offensive line this year. At tackle, if there's an injury, we got a problem. You got Zen Mikulski, you got George Fitzpatrick. Zen Mikulski would be the next guy up at left tackle. He's not so bad. George Fitzpatrick doesn't look anywhere near ready in the mop-up duty I've seen him in. So you got to watch for injury, but to be honest, there's really not a team in the country that feels comfortable with their backup linemen. It's just the way it is now with the transfer portal. Nobody does. This offensive line unit definitely has what it takes to be a top 10 unit. Can it be a top 5 unit in the country? It just might be. It just might be. So I got to give props to the guy that I criticize a lot, Justin Fry, offensive line coach. Does some puzzling things on the recruiting trail to me, and I roast him inappropriately so, I believe, for it. But you got to give him a pat on the back when his line's doing well, and they look tremendous. Obviously, Chip Kelly plays a big role in that. Chip Kelly also plays a big role in the wide receivers blocking, but those are Brian Hartline's wide receivers, so he gets the pat on the back for that. And they are blocking tremendously. So you upgraded the offensive line. You upgraded the quarterback. I won't hear anything else of it. You absolutely upgraded the wide receiver room. You had Julian Fleming starting last year. You upgraded the wide receiver room. You upgraded the defense. You downgraded tight end. That's the only area that took a step back from the 2023 team. The tight end room, losing Cade Stover and going to this this band of merry misfits we have at tight end now. They've not looked good. They've not been good. I have noticed that in the last, so G. Scott is the guy who was the quote presumed starter. I don't know why, other than seniority. Jelani Thurman is a guy that Ryan Day called out via the media, and it seems like he's coming around. But Jelani had more snaps than G against Marshall. Will Kazmarek had more snaps against G than, or Will Kazmarek had more snaps than G against Marshall as well. In 13 personnel, G was pulled off the field in favor of Bennett Christian, Jelani Thurman, and Will Kazmarek. G has not been good blocking inside. He's been decent blocking on the perimeter. Will Kazmarek also not been great blocking. I think that we thought he was going to be a better blocker. And Jelani's learning, Jelani's learning, but even just learning, he's been better than G and as good as Will Kazmarek. In my opinion, from what I've seen from the coach's breakdown. Bennett Christian, a much better blocker. And it's just, I don't know how at Ohio State you have great players everywhere and somehow it skipped the tight end room. Outside of Jelani Thurman, it's just, these guys just honestly, they're not up to the talent level of everybody else. It's just the facts. It's what it is. But, and Chip Kelly really loves to use tight ends. It's a damn good thing that, that we've got some really good looking commits in the tight end class in Nate Roberts and Brody Lennon. Nate Roberts and Brody Lennon in the class of 2025. Those guys are going to play early, and those guys are going to play early for sure. Like, this tight end room is just not up to snuff. But if you're going to pick one room that you're going to downgrade in, because you're going to downgrade somewhere on every team, if you could just pick one, you would probably pick it to be the tight end room. The running backs, I totally forgot to say, the running back room is tremendously upgraded. This team looks amazing, and I'll hear nothing of the defensive quote issues from that Marshall game. Like, there's not a thing that happened in that game that has me concerned about anything. Are you concerned about the defense? If you are, at least give it a second game. Like, if you see the same thing twice, okay. But seeing it in one game, the defensive line not getting much of a push and being worried about the backup defensive line, same thing with the offense, right? The offensive line, nobody has backups that they feel good about. If you're worried about the two deep on the defensive line, like, they don't need to play. You know what I mean? Hero didn't play good. That surprised me. I don't think he's going to play much. You saw Tywone Malone come in. Tywone Malone played 25 snaps. Nobody predicted that outside of Dylan Davis, our buddy from the Delaware Gazette. Tywone played good. Disappointing outing for Hero Canoe. But all in all, man, this video is about the offensive line. I just want to say, like, these dudes look so much better than last year, and it's got me really excited. That's it. And that's all. Juckonbucks out.